Now that we know that how a hacker can actually hack our Wi-Fi, or he can actually get into the network, we can look into some security measures we can do to save us. So first thing I am going to talk about is the de-authentication attack, in which a hacker actually tried to manage to disconnect us from the network. In order to save ourselves from the de-authentication attack, the only measure we can do is we can use a wired cable actually, because this is the only way to save ourselves from the attack actually. There are some settings I want to show you for the router actually, for the wireless network you can set. But first of all, I'm going to tell you how we can actually access the router settings, or the page. So I'm going to write if config. If config is for the Linux machines. For Windows we have ipconfig, and here we can see that this is my IP. So 192.168.1.103, and let me actually close it, and here it is. So we can see that 192.168.1.103 is our IP, and the router is actually on the first IP of the subnet. So if I want to open the settings of my router, it will be 192.168.1.1 only. So I type in 192 and it is open for me. Now for you it is going to ask you for a password. So the password, the default password, is actually written on the back side of the router, or it is on the manual. So you can look into it and see that what is the default password for you, default username and password for you. And I recommend you to actually change it for the first time you log in, and you can change it because it is very easy for someone who is connected to your network to use the default password and then get into it, because the default password for every router is available on the internet, and if someone actually entered your network, they can save the changes and they can do anything they want to do with you. So first thing I'm going to tell you about is WPS. So it is showing up QSS for me, but it is actually WPS. It is the same thing, don't confuse yourself. That is, it is written QSS, it is WPS. And the first thing you need to do is you can disable WPS for you. So the reason for that is that if you disable WPS, so nobody can use Weaver to actually run the brute force attack, and they won't be able to reverse engineer the key, reverse engineer the password for Wi-Fi, and the attack in which we actually brute forced the WPS key, it won't run for us if WPS is actually disabled for us. The other settings I want you to look into is the wireless settings, and you can see that I have I can specify the channel here. And another thing I want to talk about is the enable SSID broadcast feature. So if you disable it, I mean if you don't want to enable SSIDs, so SSID is the Wi-Fi name we see when we try to connect to a Wi-Fi. So for example, if this is disabled and someone tries to look at what Wi-Fi's are available for us or what networks are available for us, so he won't be seeing the name of our IP. So this dialog or this option for us to connect with the network won't be available for us because the SSID broadcast is disabled. So this is a security measure you can use, but it is not very effective because we saw that in Kali we actually managed to see all the networks which were hidden to, and the reason for that is because our device was actually was capturing the beacons which were emitted by the router. So this is a security measure you can use, but it is not very effective. And in wireless security, I highly recommend you don't disable the security. Do not use web, because web is an old encryption and it can be easily breakable just by capturing packets and then using aircrack-ng to capture IVs and then break the key. So we saw that how we can hack web in just 15 to 20 minutes, and it is very easy to break. So don't use WAP. It is not recommended by me or any other security personnel. So and use WPA and WPA2. It is an international standard and it is used everywhere. So and another thing, that my password is very simple. It is Metasploit. It is very simple. But if someone wants to run a wordless attack against me, just like we did in the last video, and if they want to, if they have if they have my password written in the word list and they have my password available in the word list, they can easily hack me. So what I would recommend you to is to use some numbers, or to use some special characters in your password. Keep your passwords long, up to 14 digits, or even 16 to 17 digits, but 14 digits is the standard which is used internationally, and you can use that. So wireless MAC filtering. So this is a very important feature. So for example, if you have only 3 users at your home, and you know that, and you don't want anyone else to connect with your Wi-Fi. So even if they get the key, they won't be able to use your Wi-Fi if you add the MAC addresses here. So for example, you have 3 devices. You can just simply put the MAC addresses of those devices here one by one, and only those 3 devices will be allowed to connect to your router. So if a hacker even gets to hack your Wi-Fi, and they try to connect with your network, they will be able to connect with your network, but they won't be able to access the internet. So this technique of the wireless MAC filtering is very useful for a company actually, because a company has some number of employees, and a company do not allow its employees to actually connect with the network using their mobile phones or their personal PCs. So they use MAC filtering. So they put the MAC addresses of their own PCs, and then only those PCs are allowed to connect to the network. So these were some settings I wanted you to look into, and you can actually set them for you, and then you can actually save yourself from some of the attacks we discussed.